Good morning, everybody, or it's at least morning where I'm presenting from. So I'll say good morning. My name is Terry, and I'll be taking you through our webinar today. It lasts about half an hour. It's roughly half slides, half demonstration. And today we wanted to talk about implementing iPlanet within your organization. So rolling it out, how do you get a system like iPlanet to actually go into your organization? So my background with iPlanet, I'm a project director. I mostly do the training side of things, but my background is in social care as a support worker, up to an area manager for people who have support needs around learning disabilities. So I'm not a techie person, but I've been on quite a few rollouts with organizations. So I'm just going to share some of those experiences with you, just to get you to give you a flavor of what it's like to have iPlanet rolled out within your organization. We wanted to make sure people understand that, because it can be quite a big thing to go from paper to an online system. So we just kind of wanted to break down some of the myths around that. And now with any system, and particularly with iPlanet, we really strive to have a person-centered approach. And this feeds into all of our processes, however much we configure that to the individual provider. So there are these basic 4 pillars of values that we have about evidence and value. So we want, providers need to evidence value. We demonstrate that through our system and capturing impact and outcome reports, which we'll have a look at today. Inclusion, where people supported can log into iPlanet. They can, and their family can as well. So having this online system can promote inclusion, that extra level. Transparency, both within the organization and to those outside the organization, with that who are relevant to that kind of oversight. And then the accountability, again, within the organization and outside the organization. So iPlanet strives to kind of attain those 4 universal pillars of any kind of human support, where we want to have everything from evidence and value through to inclusion, transparency, and accountability. But that's not to say that iPlanet then becomes an off-the-shelf solution. These are principles. So the iPlanet system is a principle-driven system, which gives it quite a lot of versatility because it starts with the person supported. This is a bird's eye view of what iPlanet looks like. We have in the center the core iPlanet, the blue circle in the center is a core iPlanet. So that's what, when you have iPlanet rolled out in your organization, that center circle is all part of that rollout. And then the outside circle, the red circles, they are modules that you can add on. So you can kind of configure it yourself to an extent. So you can add on, for example, a needs assessment module, or if you want referrals to go through iPlanet, then you can add that module on as well, or something like calendar or support tasks. We're not going to be able to cover all of this today, so it's just to give you a flavor of how it's kind of put together. But the inside circle, where we've got notes, plans, document management, workflow, tracking outcomes, which is, plans and outcomes are a core part of iPlanet. There's an alert panel, messages, a dashboard for staff to be able to kind of pull all that information into one place, electronic filing cabinet, the key performance indicators, reports, and notes. Now they're all core iPlanet, but there's a lot of configurability in there, so we can make the iPlanet core system really match what your workflow processes are now. So when I jump onto the demo, I'm just going to touch on a few things and show you what that looks like. But that core iPlanet, although it's a core iPlanet, the important point is it's very, very configurable, and we work with you, which I'm going to talk about in a second. We work with the provider to make sure that the core iPlanet reflects your current practices. So as a trainer, somebody myself who trains iPlanet to new staff, we the proof is in the pudding when the staff recognize their plans, and they recognize the key performance indicators, or they recognize the language that's being used in iPlanet and the sections of the plan. and so on, because what we don't want is when you take on a system like iPlanet, you don't want that to have to then retrain your staff in your processes. You want iPlanet to reflect your current processes, but in a much more efficient way. Now, what most providers do with this this little aerial view we have here, they would configure that center circle to reflect their current language, the language that they use, the processes that they use, the plans that they use, the notes, and so on. And then as that becomes embedded in the organization, they might start adding the outside circle, the modules onto that. So they might say, okay, iPlanet is now kind of embedded in our practice. We're using it, staff are using it. So why don't we have it solve our needs assessment needs, or why don't we solve referrals and start to add more and more functionality into iPlanet so its footprint can expand within your organization. You start to have a more centralized approach, a more consistent approach, rather than having siloed approaches across different processes. So this is some of the, just to give you an idea, this is some of the national provider clients we have in the UK, where I'm talking from, and in Ireland, New Zealand, and Australia. This is just a selection, just to show you that iPlanet can support a lot of people. Now, if you look on the provider side, you might be familiar with some of these, you might not. But each one of these has their own iPlanet, basically. They have all configured their iPlanet to reflect their processes and successfully launched it across their organization. So, for example, Rehab and Dimensions, these are very, very large organizations. The Clarion Group, these are large organizations who support a lot of people, but they've configured their iPlanet to reflect how they work, and the staff are successfully using that to support people with their outcomes. So now, that's not to say all of our clients are large clients like these. They're not. We have clients, provider clients, who support 50 to 100 people. But this is just to give you an example that even large organizations can roll out an iPlanet that reflects all of their processes across so many staff and so many people that they support, and that we're doing that, UK, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and so on. So how does that work? So how have we done that with those organizations and smaller organizations? Well, the principles are pretty much the same, and we call it the implementation process. We call it Quickstart, and it goes through this process here, which I'll touch on with another couple of slides as well. Firstly, we gather the initial known requirements. So a provider generally knows that they want an online solution. They might have an idea of why they want to centralize that and what it is that they're looking for. So we get all that information from them. We get the information around what their plans look like and so on. So 1, 2, and 3 there, gather the known requirements, configure the first draft, the first iteration of iPlanet, taking in all of the frameworks that they use, the options that they want. That 1 to 3 is the bulk of this process, making sure that the system is doing what they want it to do. So we would make a draft system, and then we give that back to the team at the provider, the group at that provider organizations that's working on it, and they have that for pretty much as long as they want, really. Whether that's a week, a month, 2 months, they work on that and they see if they test it against their systems, test it against paper, they get staff to look at it, and then they feed back and we refine it. So between 3 and 4, there's a lot of back and forth. Sometimes the language needs a bit more context, and you need to explain that to us so that we can get the workflow on iPlanet to really, really reflect the workflow that you use in real life, so that people aren't having to relearn things. They're only having to learn how to do it on iPlanet, not relearn processes, because really it's those processes and that language and those values that differentiate you as a provider. And it's very, very important to us that you don't lose that as you start to use iPlanet. You're not fitting in to a pigeonhole for us to be able to work on iPlanet. We want iPlanet to work for you. It's a tool that you use. So those stages, kind of 1 through 4, are really that back and forth about trying to understand your processes. You guys having a look at iPlanet, sending it back to us, asking for sometimes large changes, sometimes small changes. So that's a real effective dialogue that happens between stages 1 to 4. And then once you're happy with it, once you're happy with the screens, the functionality, the report and the workflows, the plans, Once you're happy that that works, then we sign that off. We produce that. We upload all the people you support onto the system. So there's a lot of like bulk uploads that we would do, and then it goes into testing and support our side, and then it's launched and it goes out to yourself. And then you get into the kind of the project management of rolling that out across your organization. So that quick start is kind of our side of it, getting you the system you want. And then there are a number of different ways about how you might want to roll that out as a project, and we're there to support that with training and so on. And there might be some tweaks after that as well as you kind of roll it out across your organization. It might be that you just need to change the wording on something, or a plan section isn't really landing with the staff. Once you're in rollout, we can tweak that, continues to be tweaked. It's not we build your system, give it to you and walk away. We're in a kind of a lifelong partnership with you, with a lot of support systems in place to make sure that this works for you. And that what we found, because we've been doing this for 10 years now, what we found is we've refined this process. What it does is it minimizes code development, which minimizes cost to the provider. We use a lot of configuration wizards. So what that means is it empowers the provider to be able to do a lot of the work once we've made the system. The wizards allow you to do lots of work yourself and to be empowered and not have to rely on the iplanit organization to do kind of administration tasks. There's lots of wizards to help you through that, so you don't need to know any coding. You don't need a particular IT specialist to use iplanit. I'm not an IT specialist and I can use iplanit. Having this system lowers the cost of deployment because we get it to a point where it's down to the project management to roll out, which we'll touch on in a second. Because it's a subscription service, it's all online, so it's on our servers. So what that means is you don't have a hardware requirement in terms of servers on site in your organization. There is an option for that, and usually it's the very, very large organizations that would go for that because for one reason or another. But generally speaking, 99% of people who use iplanit use our servers, which means we do all of the maintenance on that, and there are very, very little maintenance costs. We also update it regularly. And we have versions that launch. So as things like browsers change and so on, we look after all of that and make sure that iplanit works on all of the current browsers and internet software. And generally it just makes it a lot quicker. And that kind of back and forth process, particularly between stages 1 to 4, it makes sure you're getting what you wanted and there's no missed expectations. So this is kind of like getting into the project management side of it now. So if you've got your system and you're happy with your system, then there's a number of different ways to roll that out in terms of the project management side of it. So we've done the quick start side of it, which is that first cog, and then you have a core project group, which has probably been part of that quick start. So you develop managers and users, people who are going to use the system, so that you get as many opinions in there as possible without turning into a massive committee. But it's a core project group of people who have the authority to make decisions, who are experienced enough with the direct support side of things that they can make sure that direct support staff are going to understand the system and that have experience with the planning side and the outcome side and the key performance side. So that core project group can be made up of lots of different roles, not necessarily all senior management. And then we have a champions group, and this is where usually I come into it in terms of, or one of somebody at my level at the iplanit organization. We would develop a champions group. There are usually people across the organization who really take to iplanit. They're usually the ones that enjoy working on computers, a bit more tech savvy, or they're really good at the planning side of things. And or they're just in positions within the organization where they can influence others, and we develop that champions group. So we would generally train the champions, and then the champions would help roll that out. But you can organize as much training as you want from iplanit to roll it out across a number of staff. But once you actually see the training, which usually lasts between a day and a half, you've got your champions up and running, these champions can then develop that training themselves and deliver the training. And then we're into kind of just generic project management really. So set monthly targets. I think a popular monthly target is that all the plans need to be uploaded by X date. Or we need to start putting outcomes on the system, and we need everybody to have some outcomes on the system by X date. Set some accountability there as well, so people use it, and then rolling it out across the services. Now, some people take a pilot area and just use a pilot area and roll it there, or that's part of that kind of core project group that they use as part of the feedback loop. Or you can just kind of roll out area by area or service type by service type. Really depends on yourselves and how you want to do that. And we are there alongside that. There isn't a point where we just kind of back off. We're there to support you, and we've been doing this for 10 years or so now. So we've rolled this out a lot across small organizations and large organizations, and we know the best way to do that is value for money, that gets it done quick, that has the accountability. And you were assigned a client manager to help you through that process as well. This is just a typical timeline. Month 1 through to month 5, roughly. Some are much quicker than that, some are a little bit longer than that, and you can kind of see that the configuration side of it is the longest part, because we have to develop a system, we send it to you, you look at it, you give us feedback, we change it, we send it back again. So there's a lot of back and forth between month 1 and month 3 to make sure that it's configured exactly the way you want it. And then month 4 and 5 is really about support and rollouts, whether that's our delivering training or our client manager kind of doing the hand-holding side of it and giving you the best practice tips to be able to roll it out across your organization. So I'm going to jump on the system in a second and just show you some areas that are very, very configurable to reflect how you work. Just some slides here showing you from the person supported point of view. There are lots of different, we call it the portal, the client portal. There are lots of different configurations there. So there's a bunch of screenshots showing you different ways it can look, depending on the support needs, the people you support. And again, some more slides here, so that they can have, a person supported can have a very kind of just view it or add media to their site. So these are the people supported. They can kind of just view things and have a passive aspect of being able to see their plans, very, very transparent. But not necessarily active engagement on that, and that's kind of your call as to how much active engagement they can have on that. The standards of people can send messages, upload media and pictures to their plans and so on. You might be able to, you want to put a journal on there, or for people to be able to put feedback in there. It's really up to you how you want to configure the client portal side of things. On the staff side of iplanit, which is what we're going to jump into now, plans are the big one. That's really where everything starts. That's where a lot of the configurability is, and it really depends on. We want your plans to be very recognizable and still achieve all the things they're achieving on iplanit than they did on paper, just in a much more efficient way. Lots of different surveys you can put on there. These are surveys you design, and there are wizards to help you with that. And then things like, you might think, well, how does things like the recovery star or the outcome star, how does that work? We have a needs assessment system that can really configure to how you use it. So a lot of organizations use this kind of tracking progress, the distance traveled with scores of 1 to 5, and then that's saved as an assessment, and then they'll go back and do it again. Providers all work very, very differently, which is a great thing, and iplanit has to reflect that in its systems. So we design the systems around the way you work now, and all of that feeds into the reports. Here's just an example of people supposed being able to make notes on their day, or be able to take a journal or answer a survey and so on.